You pretend you're fine, but your soul has been aching. There is a silent struggle raging within you, a war of words and a tumult of opinions that belongs to no one but yourself. You carry it with a quiet dignity, a mask of composure you present to the world. But when the lights are out, when the house is still, you feel it. A profound spiritual hunger. A sense that you are standing on the precipice of a great change, yet frozen by an invisible force. You feel lost, not because you don't have a map, but because every map you've ever been given seems to lead somewhere you no longer wish to go. This feeling, this sacred desperation, is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that you are ready. The first vision, that foundational moment of modern revelation, did not begin with a glorious pillar of light. It did not begin with choirs of angels or a clear, resounding voice from the heavens. It began in the dark. It began with the confusion and desperation of a 14-year-old boy who felt the world fracturing around him and the ground of his own soul giving way. Joseph Smith once felt the same ache you feel now, just before heaven itself broke open. If this resonates with you, if you feel that ache right now in your very core, just write one word in the comments. The word is ready, because what you are feeling is not the end. It is the beginning. It is the darkness before the most glorious dawn you have ever known. This pain you carry, this confusion that haunts your quiet moments, is a calling. It is a divine invitation to step out of the noise and into your own sacred grove, that place where your deepest questions can finally be asked, not to the world, but to the very source of light itself. The weight on your shoulders is not meant to crush you. It is meant to bring you to your knees, for it is only from that posture of utter surrender that you can truly look up and see the sky begin to part. You have been fighting for so long, trying to figure it out, trying to be strong enough, good enough, certain enough. But the breakthrough does not come from your strength. It comes from the moment you finally admit you have none left. The world wants you to believe that clarity comes from information, that peace comes from accumulation, that worth comes from consensus. So you've consumed. You have read the books, listened to the podcasts, followed the guides, scrolled through endless feeds of curated wisdom, and yet the inner conflict, that quiet desperation, only grows louder in the silence that follows. You have found yourself in a war, not of armies, but of ideas. A war of words and tumult of opinions, just as the young Joseph described his own world. One voice says, "Lo, here is truth." Another cries, "No, here." And the voice inside you, your own soul's intuition, is drowned out by the clamor. This is the spiritual wilderness. It is a necessary place, but a painful one. You see the paths, the systems, the institutions, each claiming to hold the definitive key, each presenting a version of peace that feels incomplete. And the conflict is not just external. It is the civil war within your own heart. The part of you that craves certainty battles the part that senses a deeper, more personal truth is waiting. The part of you that fears being wrong battles the part that fears never discovering what is truly right for you. This is the crucible. Joseph felt this with an intensity that drove him to a point of near despair. He saw good people, devout people, contending for their beliefs with such fervor that their goodness was lost in the conflict. He saw the very source of love being used as a justification for division. And it created in him a profound spiritual hunger, an ache that could not be satisfied by the answers on offer. He realized that the truth he was seeking was not a commodity to be won in an argument or inherited through tradition. It was a witness to be received. This is the first great awakening. The realization that the answer you seek cannot be found in the noise of the world, but only in the silence of a sincere appeal to the divine. You are feeling this now. The exhaustion you feel is not from your efforts, but from your efforts in the wrong direction. You have been trying to solve a spiritual equation with intellectual tools. You have been seeking a divine witness in the court of public opinion. And your soul, in its infinite wisdom, has brought you to this place of brokenness, this place of surrender, to show you that the door you have been pushing against was always meant to be pulled open from the other side. This is not failure. This is alignment. You are being guided, through your very pain, to stop seeking and to start asking. To stop looking around and to start looking up. Your desperation is the dawning of your discipleship. Stay with this feeling. Do not run from it. We will walk through this together, exploring the insights that turn this very moment of despair into the genesis of your personal revelation. Stay until the seventh insight. It is the one your soul has been waiting to hear. The first great revelation that emerges from the crucible of desperation is this: the ache is an invitation. The spiritual hunger you feel, that gnawing sense of incompleteness, is not a flaw in your character or a sign of your faithlessness. On the contrary, it is the evidence of your divine nature stirring within you. A soul that is spiritually asleep feels no such ache. A heart that is content with the illusions of the world feels no such void. The pain you are experiencing is the pain of a seed beginning to break open beneath the soil. It is the discomfort of a spirit that was created for celestial light trying to make its home in a terrestrial shadow. This ache is a homing signal from God. It is a call from the deepest part of yourself to the highest heaven, a signal that you are ready for more. You have outgrown the spiritual container you have been living in. The old answers no longer suffice. The old structures no longer feel like home. This is a terrifying experience, for it feels like losing your foundation. But what is truly happening is that the scaffolding is being removed so that the real building can be seen. You are being invited to move beyond inherited belief into received truth. Joseph did not go to the grove because he was confident. He went because the ache of his uncertainty had become unbearable. The void within him had grown so vast that he knew, with a certainty that transcended all confusion, that only God could fill it. Your ache is your qualification. It is the very thing that makes you worthy of an answer. The heavens are not opened by righteousness in the way we often think of it, as a checklist of perfections. The heavens are opened by hunger. They are opened by a soul that has come to the end of its own resources and declares, with all the energy of its heart, that it needs a higher power, a deeper truth, a more profound love than this world can offer. So do not curse the ache. Do not numb it or distract yourself from it. Sit with it, honor it, recognize it for what it is, the stirring of your own divinity. It is the first note of a symphony that will change your life. It is the holy dissatisfaction that precedes all true revelation. And this leads to the second insight, which flows directly from the first. The confusion is a clearing. The war of words, the tumult of opinions, the paralyzing sense of not knowing which way to turn. This is not a punishment. It is a divine process of demolition. Before a new temple can be built, the old, unstable structures must be cleared away. Your confusion is the sound of your old certainties being dismantled. You are in a sacred space of not knowing. And in our world, not knowing is mistaken for weakness. But in the economy of God, not knowing is the prerequisite for learning. A mind that is full of answers has no room for truth. A heart that is bricked in with dogma has no space for personal revelation. Your confusion is creating that space. It is tilling the soil of your soul, breaking up the hard, compacted earth of assumptions and traditions you didn't even know you were carrying. It is a painful process. Feels like chaos. Feels like you are losing your mind. But what you are truly losing is the mind that was given to you by the world, so that you can discover the mind that is in alignment with Christ, with the divine. Joseph was plunged into this clearing. He was a boy surrounded by a scene of great confusion and bad feeling. He could find no rest, no solid ground. And it was this very instability that forced him to seek a different kind of foundation altogether, one that was not made of human opinions but of divine witness. You are in that clearing now. Do not be afraid of the emptiness. Do not rush to fill the void with the nearest, easiest answer. This void is holy ground. It is the space where God can finally speak, not to correct your old ideas, but to give you something entirely new. The confusion you feel is the silence that falls before the music begins. It is the untangling of old threads so that a new tapestry can be woven. Embrace the clearing. Stand in the midst of the dismantled structures of your old beliefs and know that you are standing on a construction site, not a ruin. The master architect is simply preparing the foundation for the mansion he intends to build within you. The third insight is perhaps the most difficult to accept, yet it is the very key that unlocks the door to the divine. It is this: your weakness is the opening. In a world that worships strength, self-reliance, and invulnerability, the spiritual path requires the opposite. It demands that you come to the end of yourself. It requires that you acknowledge your utter and complete dependence on a power greater than your own. The moment of your deepest perceived weakness is the moment of your greatest spiritual potential. The crack in your facade is the very place where the light gets in. You have been taught, perhaps subtly, that you must be strong for God, that you must wrestle your doubts into submission, conquer your fears, and present a perfected self to the heavens. But the pattern of all Scripture, the story of every prophet, and the personal journey of Joseph Smith teach a different lesson. God does not meet you in your strength. He meets you in your brokenness. He does not require your power. He requires your surrender. Joseph was not a theologian. He was not a man of great learning or social standing. He was a boy who was, by his own admission, unacquainted with men and things, a boy whose circumstances in life were such as to make a boy of no consequence in the world. His weakness was his primary attribute in the eyes of the world, and it was his greatest qualification in the eyes of God. His lack of preconceived notions, his humble station, his simple, unadorned desire to know. These were the openings through which the light of the restoration could pour. Your own weaknesses, the things you try to hide, the insecurities that whisper to you in the night, the feeling that you are not enough. These are not obstacles to your connection with God. They are the very points of connection. When you are strong, you rely on yourself. When you are competent, you trust in your own abilities. When you have the answers, you have no need to ask the question. But when you are weak, when you are lost, when you confess that you do not know, you create a space. You create an opening for grace to enter. The pride of the self-sufficient heart is a closed door. The humility of the broken heart is an open gate. Think of the ground. Hard, sun-baked, impenetrable clay cannot receive the rain, cannot nurture a seed. The water simply runs off its surface. The ground must be broken. It must be tilled, turned over, softened. It must become vulnerable. Your heart is that ground. The trials and pains that have broken you open have not destroyed you. They have prepared you. They have created the fertile soil where the seed of a divine witness can finally take root. So when you are on your knees, feeling the full weight of your inadequacy, know that you are in a holy position. You are not at your lowest point. You are at your point of entry. This is the moment when the grace of God can finally rush in to fill the spaces you have been trying to fill with your own frantic effort. Your consecration is not the offering of your strengths, but the honest offering of your weakness. It is saying, I cannot, I do not know, I am not enough. And in that sincere confession, the voice of heaven responds, therefore I am. Watch what I can do with your beautiful, consecrated emptiness. This is the great paradox of the gospel. You are made strong out of weakness. You are made wise out of confusion. You are found only after you have become completely and utterly lost. This brings us to the fourth revelation, a shift from the internal state to the external action that it inspires. The insight is this: the grove is a state of being, not just a place. When the inner desperation reaches its zenith, it compels an outer pilgrimage. For Joseph, this was a literal walk to a stand of trees near his home. But the power was not in the geography. It was in the intention. The sacred grove was not sacred before he went there. It was his desperate, intentional seeking that consecrated the ground. You have a sacred grove waiting for you. It may not be a cluster of maples and oaks. It may be a quiet corner of your home at 4 a.m. It may be a long drive with the radio off. It may be a walk in a city park. The grove is any space you consciously retreat to, leaving behind the noise of the world and the expectations of others, to be utterly alone with your soul and your God. It is a deliberate act of separation. It is drawing a line and saying, for this moment, I am unavailable to the world, so that I may become available to heaven. The power of the grove is the power of solitude and silence. In the world, you are defined by your roles: parent, spouse, employee, friend. You are bombarded by external stimuli, by demands on your time and energy. In the grove, you are none of those things. You are simply a soul, a consciousness reaching out. The silence is not empty. It is pregnant with possibility. It is in the silence that the subtle whispers of the spirit, drowned out by the daily cacophony, can finally be heard. Stepping into your grove is an act of profound faith. It is the belief that if you create the space, God will meet you there. It is the trust that your sincere seeking will be answered. Joseph had never as yet made the attempt to pray vocally. Think of the vulnerability in that. To go alone into the woods, to a place he had chosen, to speak out loud to a God he hoped was listening. It was an act of supreme spiritual courage, born of supreme spiritual desperation. Your journey requires the same. It requires you to physically and mentally carve out a space that is dedicated to your breakthrough. This cannot happen in the margins of a busy life. Cannot happen while scrolling on your phone. The consecration of the space is a symbol of the consecration of your heart. It is you demonstrating to God, to the universe, and to yourself that you are serious about this quest. That your spiritual hunger is not a passing mood but a driving force. Find your grove. Make an appointment with the divine and keep it. Go there with no agenda other than to pour out your heart, to articulate your confusion, to offer up your weakness. Do not go with a demand for an answer, but with a plea for connection. The grove is the laboratory of your faith, the place where you move from theory to experience. The world will try to keep you from it. The moment you decide to go, 100 distractions will arise. The urgent will try to eclipse the important. This is part of the test. Your resolve to enter your grove, despite the resistance, is the first evidence of the faith that will eventually part the heavens. The fifth insight follows you into that sacred space, and it concerns the nature of your appeal. It is this: the question is more important than the answer you think you need. We often approach God like a cosmic search engine, typing in our problems and expecting a neat, tidy solution to be delivered. We want a clear yes or no. We want the 5-step plan, the unambiguous sign. But the divine pattern is different. The power is not in receiving a prepackaged answer. The power is in the process of forming the honest question. The quality of your revelation will be determined by the sincerity and vulnerability of your inquiry. Look at Joseph's question. It was not, "God, how can I be successful?" or "God, please make my problems go away." His question was born of his deepest point of conflict. Which of all the sects was right, that I might know which to join? And beneath that, an even more fundamental cry, how should I know? It was a question about truth, about belonging, about discernment. It was a question that came from the very center of his soul's ache. He wasn't asking for a blessing. He was asking for clarity. He wasn't seeking comfort. He was seeking truth, no matter the cost. Your breakthrough is waiting for you to form your own honest question. What is the truest, most vulnerable inquiry of your heart right now? It may not be what you think it is. You may think your question is about your career, but perhaps the deeper question is about your calling, your purpose. You may think your question is about a relationship, but perhaps the deeper question is about your capacity to love and be loved. You must be willing to dig beneath the surface-level anxieties to unearth the fundamental query that is driving your desperation. The act of formulating the question is a spiritual discipline in itself. It requires you to quiet the noise, to listen to the whispers of your own heart, and to be ruthlessly honest with yourself. What do you truly, above all else, want to know? What confusion, if resolved, would change everything for you? The heavens respond to this kind of authenticity. A vague prayer for help gets a vague answer, but a soul-specific, honest, and vulnerable question pierces the veil. It is the arrow shot directly at the heart of heaven. Furthermore, the question itself begins to change you. The moment you articulate your deepest uncertainty, you shift from being a passive victim of your circumstances to an active seeker of truth. You take ownership of your spiritual journey. You declare that you are no longer content to be tossed to and fro, but that you are now a collaborator with the divine in the work of your own salvation. Do not be afraid if your question feels simple, or messy, or even selfish. The only requirement is that it be real. God is not offended by your humanity. He is invited by it. Bring him your tangled, confusing, desperate question. The act of asking is the act of faith. It is the belief that there is a source of all light who hears you, who knows you, and who is more willing to give than you are to receive. The question is the key you forge in the fires of your own desperation, and it is the only key that will fit the lock of your personal revelation. Now you have entered your grove. You have formed your honest question. You kneel. You open your mouth to pray, perhaps for the first time with such focused, raw intent. And it is here, at the very threshold of your breakthrough, that the sixth and most terrifying insight often manifests. The enemy appears when you are closest to the light. Joseph describes it with chilling clarity. As he began to call upon God, he was seized upon by some power which entirely overcame him. A thick darkness gathered around him, and it seemed to him as if he were doomed to sudden destruction. He was bound, his tongue was swollen, and he could not speak. This was not a moment of gentle, peaceful contemplation. It was a moment of intense, overwhelming spiritual warfare. It is crucial that you understand this. This opposition is not a sign that you have done something wrong. It is not a sign that God has abandoned you. It is, paradoxically, a confirmation that you are on the right path. Darkness does not fight for territory that is of no consequence. The adversary does not waste his efforts on souls who are spiritually asleep. The intensity of the opposition you feel is a measure of the importance of the revelation that awaits you. This force comes to attack you at your most vulnerable point. It will tell you that you are a fool for trying this. It will whisper that God does not hear you, that you are not worthy of an answer. It will amplify your deepest fears and insecurities, creating a cloud of despair so thick that you begin to believe the light is a lie. It will try to convince you to give up, to stand up, to walk out of the grove and return to the comfortable noise of the world. This is the final gatekeeper. It is the guardian at the threshold of revelation. Its purpose is to test the sincerity of your desire. Do you want truth, or do you merely want relief? Do you want God, or do you just want an easy life? The darkness before the dawn is the deepest darkness. The moment before the breakthrough is the moment of greatest resistance. You may feel it as a wave of profound doubt, a sudden flood of anxiety, a paralyzing sense of your own unworthiness, or even a physical lethargy that makes prayer feel impossible. Recognize this for what it is. It is not your true voice. It is the static of the adversary trying to jam the signal between you and heaven. And the way through it is not to fight it with your own strength. You cannot reason with it. You cannot argue it away. Joseph's experience shows the way. He did not defeat this power on his own. He was, by his own account, ready to sink into despair and abandon himself to destruction. It was at that very moment, the moment of utter helplessness, that he did the one thing he still could do. He exerted all his remaining power, not in fighting the darkness, but in calling upon God. The escape is not in fighting, but in focusing. You must focus your desire, your hope, your remaining sliver of faith, on the light you believe exists beyond the darkness. Your deliverance is not found in your own power, but in your appeal to a higher power. This moment of opposition is designed to make you choose, with every fiber of your being, which source you will trust: the suffocating darkness that is present, or the redeeming light you have come to seek. This leads us to the heart of the matter, the pivot upon which your entire spiritual life will turn. It is the moment of utter surrender. Joseph, in the grip of that terrifying power, on the verge of giving up, exerted all his powers to call upon God to deliver him. This was not a casual prayer. This was not a recitation of memorized words. This was a soul cry, a primal appeal from the depths of his being. It was the final, desperate act of a person who had come to the absolute end of his own strength. This is the sacred transaction. You must come to the point where your own effort, your intellect, your willpower, and your strength have completely and utterly failed you. You must be brought to your knees, not by reverence alone, but by a profound recognition of your own insufficiency. It is in this moment, and only in this moment, that divine power can truly manifest in your life. We spend so much of our lives resisting this moment. We fight, we strive, we claw, we strategize, we try to solve our own spiritual crisis. We believe that the answer lies in doing more, in trying harder. And so, we exhaust ourselves against the immovable object of our own limitations. The darkness that seized Joseph was so powerful precisely because it was designed to exhaust him, to drain every last ounce of his self-reliance until all that was left was the raw, naked desire for God. Surrender is not passivity. It is not giving up. It is an active and conscious transfer of trust. It is the moment you stop saying, "I can't do this," and start saying, "I can't do this, therefore I must trust the one who can." It is the prying open of your clenched fists to release your own plans, your own timelines, your own expectations, and to receive whatever God has to give in His own way, in His own time. Think of a person drowning. Their panicked flailing, their desperate struggle for control, is the very thing that pulls them under. The first rule of water rescue is that the drowning person must often exhaust themselves to the point of near unconsciousness before they can be saved. Only when they stop fighting can the rescuer approach and lift them out. Your spiritual life is no different. You have been flailing in the waters of your own confusion and fear. The moment of surrender is the moment you stop fighting the water and look for the rescuer. It is the deep breath you take before you go under, trusting that a hand will be there to pull you up. This is the moment when you consecrate not just your time or your talents, but your very will. It is the ultimate offering. And it is this offering that heaven cannot resist. It is the signal that you are truly ready. Not ready to achieve, but ready to receive. Not ready to be strong, but ready to be saved. For many, this is the most frightening step because it feels like letting go of control. But you are not letting go of control. You are letting go of the illusion of control, an illusion that has been the source of so much of your pain and exhaustion. You are surrendering the burden of your own salvation and placing it into the hands of the only one who can carry it. This is the sacred pause before the dawn, the stillness in the eye of the storm. It is the moment you close your eyes, call upon God with the last spark of your energy, and wait. And in that moment of complete surrender, when your own strength is utterly spent, the seventh and most crucial insight is revealed. The light descends when you can do no more. Joseph said it was, "At the very moment when I was ready to sink into despair, I saw a pillar of light exactly over my head." Notice the timing. Not when he was strong. Not when he had figured it out. Not when he had successfully fought off the darkness. It was at the very moment of his deepest extremity. The light is not a reward for your struggle. It is a response to your surrender. It does not come because you have earned it. It comes because you have finally stopped trying to. This is the grace that so many of us misunderstand. We see it as a supplement to our efforts, a helping hand when we get tired. But true, transformative grace is not a supplement. It is a replacement. It is a power that takes over when our own power is proven to be nothing. The pillar of light that descended was above the brightness of the sun. This is not a gentle, metaphorical illumination. This is a power so immense, so brilliant, so absolute, that it redefines reality itself. It is a power that descends upon you and changes everything. The darkness that had held Joseph bound was instantly dispelled. He was delivered from the enemy which had held him. He did not break the chains. The light vaporized them. This is what is waiting for you. A breakthrough so complete that it does not just solve your problem. It renders the problem irrelevant. It does not just answer your question. It elevates you to a state where the question itself is transformed. And this leads to the eighth insight, which is contained in the very first words spoken from that pillar of light. The first communication from the divine was not an instruction. It was not a correction. It was not a list of commandments. The first words were a declaration of identity and love. God the Father, pointing to Jesus Christ, said, "This is my beloved Son. Hear him." Before Joseph was given a mission, he was reminded of the Son's worthiness. And in that moment, by extension, he was enveloped in that same love. The first message from heaven to a soul in desperate need is always one of identity, relationship, and love. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a child to be loved. Before God gives you your calling, He reminds you of your belovedness. He reestablishes your core identity. All the lies the darkness has been whispering to you, that you are unworthy, that you are alone, that you are forgotten, are incinerated in the brilliant truth of your divine parentage and the infinite love of the Son. This is the healing. This is the restoration that must happen within you before any external work can begin. You must be refounded on the bedrock truth of who you are. The witness you have been seeking is not just a witness of truth. It is a witness of you. It is God bearing witness to your soul that you are His, that you are seen, and that you are loved with a perfect, all-consuming love. Everything else flows from this. Your calling, your purpose, your path forward. It is all built upon this unshakable foundation. The moment the light descends, the first thing it illuminates is your own divine worth. And in that light, you are not just answered. You are remade. After the brilliance, after the voice, after the consuming fire of revelation, comes the quiet integration. This is where the ninth insight resides. The witness is carried in stillness, not shouted in triumph. When the vision closed, Joseph found himself lying on his back, looking up into heaven. When he came to, he had no strength. The encounter with the divine did not leave him energized in a physical sense. It left him emptied, serene, and profoundly changed. The proof of a true spiritual breakthrough is not a sudden burst of frantic activity, but a deep, abiding, inner stillness. It is a quiet certainty that settles into the marrow of your bones. The world expects you to come down from the mountain and immediately build something, to market your miracle, to shout your testimony from the rooftops. But the divine pattern is often one of withdrawal, of silence, of letting the sacred experience settle and integrate into your very being. Jesus himself, after his baptism and the divine affirmation, was led into the wilderness for 40 days. Elijah, after the fire and earthquake, heard the voice of God in a still, small voice. Joseph went home and leaned up by the fireplace, his body weak but his soul illuminated. Your witness is not a trophy to be displayed. It is a seed to be planted in the quiet garden of your heart. It must be protected from the harsh winds of doubt and the scorching sun of public opinion. It needs time to germinate in the darkness of your own soul before it can sprout into the light of day. This stillness is your new foundation. The frantic energy of the seeker is replaced by the calm resolve of the knower. You no longer need to run from answer to answer, because you have received the one answer that matters, the witness of your own connection to the divine. This does not mean your life becomes easy. In fact, Joseph's life became infinitely more difficult. But the nature of his struggle changed. He was no longer struggling with confusion. He was now struggling with the consequences of his new clarity. He was anchored, and this leads us to the 10th and deeply personal insight. Your calling is born from your deepest wound. The very question that drove you into the grove becomes the focus of your life's work. Joseph went into the woods tormented by religious confusion and the division among good people. He came out with the seed of the restoration, a mission to bring clarity, to restore plain and precious truths, and to gather the family of God into a unified whole. His greatest pain became his prophetic purpose. Look at your own life. The wound that aches the most, the problem that has haunted you for years, the question that drove you to your knees. This is not a random affliction. It is the raw material of your unique calling. If you have struggled profoundly with a sense of worthlessness, your calling may be to help others see their own divine value. If you have been lost in a wilderness of addiction, your calling may be to be a light to those still trapped in that darkness. If you have felt the pain of deep division in your family or community, your calling may be to be a peacemaker, a builder of bridges. God does not waste a single moment of your pain. Your brokenness is your qualification. Your scars are your credentials. The precise nature of your desperation is the blueprint for your divine assignment. Your wound is the place where your unique light can enter the world. It is the work you were born to do, not because you are perfect at it, but because you understand its struggle more intimately than anyone else. Your mess becomes your message. Your test becomes your testimony. This new calling, born of your deepest pain and consecrated by divine light, does not come with a detailed itinerary. And so we arrive at the 11th insight, a truth that requires immense patience and faith. Right timing is divine, not human. After the most significant event in human history since the resurrection, what did Joseph do? He didn't write a book. He didn't start a church. He didn't go on a preaching tour. He went back to his life. He was a boy again, helping on the farm. 3 years of silence passed before the next major angelic visit from Moroni. 3 years. Can you imagine the internal pressure? The doubt that could have crept in? The temptation to rush, to force things, to prove that his experience was real? Yet the pattern holds. There is a divine gestation period for all sacred things. Revelation is an event. Its unfolding is a process. You may have a powerful breakthrough, a moment in your own grove where the heavens open and your path is made clear. But then, silence. You are returned to your ordinary life, to your daily responsibilities. The dishes still need to be done. The bills still need to be paid. This period of waiting is not a test of your memory. It is a test of your trust. It is the space where the revelation moves from being an experience in your mind to a reality in your character. You must learn to live the truth you received in secret before you are asked to declare it in public. You are being given time to let the roots of your new witness grow deep, to anchor you so firmly in your new reality that no future storm can shake you. The world screams for speed. It celebrates the overnight success, the viral moment. But the kingdom of God operates on the principle of the seed. It is planted, it is hidden in the earth, and it grows in slowness and silence before it ever breaks the surface. Your calling will unfold at the speed of your own alignment. You cannot rush it. To try and force it is to risk pulling the plant up by its roots to see if it's growing. Your work in the waiting period is to be faithful to the light you have received. It is to practice living in this new state of being, this quiet inner stillness. It is to cultivate the peace that was given to you. This is a time of preparation, of strengthening, of becoming the person who can handle the weight of the calling when it is fully revealed. Trust the divine timing. The one who orchestrated the parting of the heavens for you also knows the perfect moment for your next step. The silence is not an absence of God. It is the presence of His patient, loving, and masterful hand, shaping you for the work to come. Your job is not to know the whole path, but to walk faithfully in the light you have been given for this one day. The right timing is not a schedule you keep. It is a rhythm you learn to feel, a divine current you learn to flow with. And so we arrive at the final insight, the one that governs all the days that follow your breakthrough. It is the practice of living a consecrated life. The 12th insight is this: consecration is the daily act of remembering the light. The first vision was not an endpoint. It was a beginning. It was a new orientation for an entire life. The memory of that light, the feeling of that deliverance, the truth of those words, became the new compass for Joseph Smith. It was the anchor to which he returned again and again through decades of persecution, trial, and unimaginable hardship. Your breakthrough is not a one-time event that solves all your future problems. It is a foundational experience that provides the strength and perspective to face all your future problems. Consecration is the active, daily choice to live from that sacred memory. When the darkness returns, as it surely will, when doubt whispers, when fear paralyzes, when the world's noise becomes deafening, consecration is the act of mentally and spiritually returning to your grove. It is the act of remembering the feeling of the light on your face. It is the act of rehearing the voice that declared your worth. It is the choice to believe your experience over your present fear. This is the work. This is the new discipline. It is less about doing and more about being. It is about being a person who has seen the light. How does such a person walk through the world? How do they handle conflict? How do they approach their work? How do they love their family? The memory of the light becomes the organizing principle of your entire existence. It informs your choices. It softens your judgments. It fuels your compassion. This quiet transformation is the true fruit of revelation. It is the empowered stillness that replaces the old anxiety. You are no longer desperately seeking. You are now calmly living from a place of having found. And what you have found is not a set of answers, but a connection, a relationship, an internal, unshakable witness. This is the call. The journey you have been on, the pain that initiated it, was all for this, to bring you to a place where you could receive a witness so personal, so powerful, that it could reorder your entire world from the inside out. Your brokenness was the catalyst. Your desperation was the key. Your surrender was the doorway. And the light you received is now your life's work to embody and, when the time is right, to share. Not by shouting, but by shining. By living in such a way that others feel the warmth of the fire that was kindled in you, in your own sacred grove. Let this be your meditation. Remember the darkness. Honor the desperation. But live from the light. This is the path of prophetic wisdom. This is the journey from a silent struggle to an empowered stillness. This is the promise that your deepest breakdown is, and always was, the sacred prelude to your most glorious breakthrough.